special act here?
The organization that owns the Opera House is the Sheridan Opera House Foundation. It was created in 1991 by Sandra Carradine, who's, I guess, both famous and infamous in Telluride. And when she came about, I guess the building was up for auction. The bank had owned it at the time. Whoever had owned it previously foreclosed. The building was up for auction, and there's actually a development company looking to purchase it to rip it down and build condominiums. Luckily, at that time, the Sheridan Opera Foundation was created with the mission of providing quality entertainment for Telluride, as well as preserving and restoring this beautiful space. We're kind of fortunate. There's several buildings and locations in Telluride that are on the historic register. The Sheridan Opera House is one of the few interiors that's also protected, so not only is the building on the historic register, but the interior is as well. Couple points about the interior here. This is the original maple floor. The oleo that you see here, this curtain, was hand painted shortly after the building was built, although the date is not known exactly. If you look around the walls, you'll see all these intricate stencil work. The building had kind of been neglected for some time. The Pences owned it, and they did the first renovation of the building. And they put up some plaster over the old stencils. So when I started here a couple years ago, that entire cove was all gold. The walls were all an off-white. There's gold all around the proscenium and everything. And we hired an artist out of New York who had actually done the stencil work in the Wheeler Opera House in Aspen as well. And they came in to replicate our stencils for us. This is a pretty small stage. It looks a lot bigger when you're standing on the floor watching a show, but really there's not a whole lot to work with here. So a lot of times when we have shows, artists come in and go, oh, whoa, we only need to bring about half our equipment in. So yeah, it's not a big stage. Right behind here, actually, that's a set piece, but right behind this set piece is the wall to the Sheridan Hotel. And there actually used to be a secret entrance right back here. I'll show you where it was, where artists could stay at the hotel and then come right through the secret entrance onto the stage and never have to go out onto the street. This is the green room. This is where our artists come and stay before a show and come to relax between sets, and sometimes stay late after shows. And it'll be cool. Sometimes after a show, there'll be like the second show in the green room. You know, people will stay here and jam or play. Especially like Bluegrass Weekend, people love to play in this theater, and so they'll stay until all hours of the night. Sometimes not to my liking. So this space was actually added in the 80s. I believe in 84. The Opera House used to end right about here. There was a wall here, and actually in this photo, you can see that old wall. There's a sign on the wall, you can pass that around if you want. It says Opera House, picture shows 5 and 10 cents. And so I guess for a while they show movies every week for quite the affordable price. But in the 80s, when they extended the Opera House, they built the vaudeville bar in here, and these panels here actually used to be glass windows that looked out over a parkway. This woodwork was added in the 70s. The projection booth was extended in the 70s. When the Pences owned the building, it was, in their eyes, a movie theater. And so I think that's when they put the rake in the floor. You know, that's when they had the projection booth extended. That's when they put the old 35mm projectors in there, which we still hold on to, even though we only use a couple days out of the year during the film festival.
Fred Stancliffe, who was a Texan that had bought the hotel and the Opera House, and his wife was supposedly somewhat of an opera singer, and she wanted to perform here. But then in 1971, about 500 hippies moved to town, and she, after being downtown one day and seeing what was going on, she came home and told her husband, I'm not going to be raising my children in Telluride. And they moved to Denver. So Fred had to figure out what to do with the hotel. He leased the bar to Larry Holmgren. He never did find anybody to really operate the hotel. But the Opera House was in big demand. He leased that to Bill and Stella Pence.
As you can see, keep all of our old set pieces from the plays over the years. And this is where we store all our seats when we have seats at events. But I think there used to be something a little bit more interesting down here, right, George?
Tom Goldsmith. And I met Tom out on the street, and Tom says, what does Telluride need? What does Telluride need? And I said, a bathhouse. And I know right where it could go because I had literally just been down in this space hours before. He went right up. I mean, he was a doer. He went right up, signed a lease for this space, probably for $200 or $300 a month. And then went back to San Francisco and hired an architect and designed a bathhouse down here that had two big saunas, co-ed saunas, and a big common shower back in the corner, a pool room that was right out here. They pulled the old boiler that was still down in here, pulled most of that out through that door, out into the side lot, because remember, that part of the hotel hadn't been rebuilt yet. And he started the boiler room sauna bath that really served Telluride well through the 70s into the 80s. It was especially nice for us bachelors, especially when you lived a block away. And especially if you had convinced the guy that started it that it was your idea and therefore you got a lifetime pass. But it was good. Wendy Brooks of the Telluride Academy fame decided early on, like must have been 77, 78, that Telluride needed to have more masseuses. And so she started a massage class down there. And we met 2 nights a week. And a friend of mine, local Mason, and I decided we'd take the course. And there were a couple of couples. And then there were 5 or 6 just knockout young women. And it was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life.